we can be heard on the countdown. So if you want to talk your shit about Dominique, now is the safest space to do it. But you know what?
I learned that the hard way.
Anyway.
I learned about the countdown hot mic the hard way in the first episode.
Oh, that's right. That's right. By the way, hello. Welcome to Debatable, fake television show where Dominique apparently loves his mom more than he loves me or Kevin Clark or Nate Tice or even Alabaster, because he's celebrating his mom's birthday. Happy birthday to Dominique's mom. We are thinking of you. Your son is an unbelievably unreliable coworker, but we have topics that I think Alabaster wants us to introduce. We'll get to, Dan Snyder right off top.
Right off the bat.
Packers and Chargers.
We can talk more about Dominique's family if you'd like. I mean, it's fine.
Rams, Bucs, and then, we'll do a scouting report on the entire Foxworth clan. But Alabaster, bring us some order before I begin to say things that Dominique will actually get mad at me for saying.
Okay, well, we're going to start with the Washington Commanders. I am from D.C., so this has been a celebratory time in the district as it appears that Dan Snyder might be selling the team. But my question for you all, how do you think the rest of Dan Snyder's tenure as the owner of the Commanders plays out from here?
So Kevin and Nate are two of the sharpest football minds in our business. I just want to start this conversation by merely counting to 6. That's as far as my analysis goes here. There are 6 investigations to date into Dan Snyder, right? So we're getting now the news that, okay, the Bank of America deal is apparently real, but we don't know if it's for a minority share, if it's for the whole thing, or if it's all just a giant lie. And so how are you guys? Yeah. Okay. Kevin has his finger raised, and I think he's
I was giving you kind of an acknowledgement that it's probably, we're going to start with the assumption it's a giant lie, because as Alabaster knows, having lived in the DMV for a long time, that the most cynical outcome for Daniel Snyder is the correct one. That's Snyder's razor. Okay. And so you start to think about the different ways this could go. Is he going to try to sell a minority stake and say, problem solved, I'm recommitting myself? Is he going to do something even worse, like kind of as a change agent, something like transfer ownership to his wife full time and say things are going to change now? Meanwhile, he's still showing up with oversized khakis and hoodies and they're running the team the same way. Okay. There's a lot of that. Having said that, if it's just minority stakes, who wants to get into business with Dan Snyder right now? And who's going to pay a premium to do that? I think that when a team is rumored, and there's an old financial saying, like every mergers and acquisition rumor eventually becomes true. The same is true of teams. When you're for sale a little bit, you're for sale the whole way. And I think this is all kind of rich guys speak for. Someone make an offer, I'll accept. You said the number 6. That's not investigations for Daniel Snyder. That's not what he cares about. He cares about $6 billion. I think that's going to end up being what it is. David Tepper paid 2 and change.
Wait. 6. That's where we're at now, Kevin? We're already at 6 in the economy
let's do the math
of
here.
football?
Let's do the math here. So David Tepper gives 2 and change for the Panthers. 3 years later, the Broncos pay 4.6. And the Commanders, I think, are enough of a white whale for enough people. I always heard this theory that if the Steelers were ever on the open market, it would go for an incalculable amount of money. It'd be like Disney, because there are so many billionaires who grew up just in love with the Steelers, who were kids in the 70s and would give all of their net worth just to own the Steelers, right? The Commanders, Alabaster can ask his parents about this. I can ask my aunt and uncle who were still there in the DC area. There's a lot of people who remember the Washington football team in the 80s. And there's enough affinity. And what you're buying now, Snyder's torn down the team. He's torn down the stadium, basically, and he can't build a new one because he's too toxic to work with. What you're buying is guaranteed TV money and the affection of a bunch of 55-year-olds who still remember when the franchise was good. That's the only value, and somehow, because the NFL is the NFL, that's worth $6 billion.
Yeah. Wow. Nate, Kevin, I like how Kevin started by giving us like a financial aphorism. Like put that onto a throw pillow. Right? If there's all mergers and acquisitions rumors become true, it's not exactly where there's smoke, there's fire, but I appreciate the intent behind it.
Yeah, I know. And that's not like, so that's his fastball. It's not like I can come in and talk about fullbacks fitting up the linebacker on a run play here.
I mean,
Terry
McLaren.
I feel like all of this is going to be like a heel in wrestling, dragged away, kicking and screaming. Like that's how this all feels like, the fall of Nero and Rome, whatever comparison you want to make. But I've just been laughing because that transition, like, oh, Mrs. Snyder being the day-to-day operator. Like here in Vegas, the mayor of Vegas for a couple of decades was the old mob boss's lawyer, and he became the mayor of Vegas. And then he stopped being mayor, but his wife then became mayor for an extended period of time. I believe she still is the mayor. That's kind of what that felt like. But I agree with all that about how the Washington franchise is one of those blue blood franchises. It's just that we've gotten away from it. This team was dominant in the 80s. This is when they were under Gibbs, this is one of the top franchises. When they played the Bears on Thursday night, they're bringing up 72-0 score from the NFC Championship game from the 40s and 50s. Like this team goes way, way back and has been good for a long time. But I've been laughing is how when there's smoke, there's fire. You know, the article comes out, oh, they need to get 24 owners. And then all of a sudden you see the owners. Who's the owner that's getting the most quotes, I feel like right now? Jim Irsay. And you want to know why Jim Irsay is getting the most quotes? Because he's bulletproof. He, in the sense, not in the good sense, where it's like Jerry Jones bulletproof. Bulletproof in the sense that all of his skeletons are out in the open. He uses skeletons like a ventriloquist dummy. Like that, like he doesn't care. Oh, you got all this dirt on me. He doesn't care. He's just like, all right, whatever. I'm going to talk. But notice that's been the messenger for the owners the last couple of weeks, which makes me think, hey, they're talking about it. That's where, like, I think what Kevin said, that's such a true quote, is that what is the offer? But it seems like just more and more smoke's building up because there's more kindling of fire building up.
I like how Jim. Oh yeah, no.
I was just going to say Jim Irsay is getting the Yarmir Yager Award. And the reason I say that is because famously Yarmir Yager once took a photo in a compromising situation with a woman, and someone tried to blackmail it, and he said, "Don't care, here it is," and just put it out for the internet. That is Jim Irsay right now. Everybody says, "Oh, Snyder might have dirt on us," and Jim Irsay said, "My dirt's already out there. Here it is." Exactly. By the way, Daniel Snyder, I hate you. Sell the team.
I like how there is a Yager effect, like there is a Streisand effect, except it's just kind of like cutting right to the chase. Right. Here's where I live. Here's what you can find inside of my closets. I like how Jim Irsay has like, he believes in like PR double jeopardy. It's like, I'm already guilty, guys.
Right.
You can't get me again.
Yeah.
But the thing, okay, but this brings us back to Snyder, right? Because Snyder for the first time is at least like giving on this story. Like ESPN comes out with a story. Don Van Natta, Seth Wickersham, Tisha Thompson, they come out with this big expose following the Washington Post's own exposés and investigations. And the response from Snyder's camp is, this is obviously lies and like underhanded and clearly like there's an ulterior motive and this will never work to get us to sell. Yeah. And now he's finally acknowledging that actually I'm gonna sell now, possibly
within a month.
And it's a month later, and I'm like, okay, should I just think, to go back to how we started this, of like Dan Snyder is just less of like, you know, a clever chess player, but just a guy who lies and doesn't actually need an end game. No, and it's just like lying to keep it going. Yeah. However it takes, he's just lily pad hopping of lies.
He's the guy who doesn't know how to play poker, so he's just trying to bluff, and he's really, really bad at it. He said he would never change the team name. Well, then when it got serious, he immediately changed the team name and acted like, what was the issue? I changed it. He said he was never going to fire Bruce Allen, who everybody in the world knew needed to be fired. And then when it got serious, he just bailed on him immediately. And there was the report that he was going to keep him in the organization, and then Twitter basically bullied him into it. When it comes to rich people, bullying works. And it was funny because I just had Van Lathan on my own podcast, and he just said to me one thing that I hadn't even thought about, which is, if you're looking at this right now and you're happy as a Commanders fan, imagine how Knicks fans feel. And what I mean by that, I think we should all know, is at some point, is Dolan going to get to a point where there's enough embarrassment, enough shame? Shamelessness is a skill. Daniel Snyder has had it for 23 years. That's why he still owns the team. Does everybody reach this point where they say, you know what? A bunch of $1 billion and being able to do whatever I want. Now, Dolan's in the blues band like Jim Irsay, so that's a different thing. We don't know what Snyder's
way to tie both together. Yeah, that's the commonality.
Straight shot.
We don't know what Snyder's hobbies are when he gets the $6 billion, but we do know that I'd rather have $6 billion than be a citywide, national, international joke.
That was great.
The ego. Wait, hold on. Let's talk about rich guy psychology. And I'm curious, right? Like,
I love
like Nate,
bluffing, like the bluffing in poker is so perfect. Sorry, Pablo. That was so perfect. No. That's exactly what he is. He's like, Rays, this is what people do in poker, right? everybody bluffs. That's exactly as opposed to actually having a hand of cards and hold him. He's bluffing the flop, the river, and the turn of the river every single hand. He's like, oh, well, you got me on that one. We'll see on next hand. Oh, I'll just buy back in. Like that. That's
well, it's because he can't do anything. He's not good at anything.
No.
Can't get revenge. Living well is the best revenge, right?
Yeah.
Daniel Snyder can't do that. He can't put a winning team together. He's just bad at everything. So all he can do is be a jackass and
double
pretend
down.
like
and double down on being a
crushing
jackass. That's what he's got.
I-
Jackass,
Triple
double down, triple down.
It's really sinking in how much Nate lives in Vegas, all of this poker talk.
yeah.
I'm also realizing that he's also the guy who in the middle of the card game, like, is told, like, you got to pay up. He just goes to the bathroom or his yacht on the coast of France and just doesn't come back for, like, days. And everyone's like, where's Dan? It's like, he's in the bathroom. Like, you don't care about that? It's like, I guess we should get him back.
A subpoena would work, right? No, might not.
No,
it might
not
not.
really.
I think he'll just
Not
stall us
really.
out, guys. We'll get him next week. We'll get that $100 next week, I guess.
God, just bringing up the fact that Dolan might sell the team actually sent my heart fluttering in ways that are either like both super like optimism inspiring and also possibly just a cardiovascular issue at this point. But Alabaster, what is the next topic, please?
Now you know how I feel, Pablo. We're going to talk about two laser rocket armed quarterbacks. And they're both
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Taylor
They're both
Heineke.
road favorites.
We already
this
talked about
weekend.
Taylor Heineke.
My question for you all: which road favorite are you more confident in? The Packers at -3.5 at the Lions, or the Chargers at -3 at the Falcons?
Oh God, I'd like to pretend like I know how to analyze this question as well as you guys, but I don't. How do you guys actually analyze this question?
Nate, you take the lead here, and I'll
Take the
poke
lead.
holes in you.
Perfect. This is more. I'm going to say the Packers very slightly, but that's more about because I actually think the Falcons are feisty. Not only that they're 500, but that's more why I'm saying that. I think just I'm going to take this whole question about the Packers or the Lions or the Chargers. And I'm going to compliment the Falcons for a minute here. They are one of the top run teams, one of the most explosive teams. If anyone's following me on Twitter, they know I've tweeted about this way too many times, but they match up very well with what the Chargers do on defense. The Chargers do not want to be in base defense, meaning that they don't want a lot of linebackers on the field. Well, guess what team wants you to put your linebackers on the field? That's the Falcons. Only team in the league that's been used 3 personnel groupings 20% or more of the time. The Chargers are one of the worst defenses. They're the second worst defense when they're in base defense on first and second down. And
What
they're
a
going
kink
against-
Nate Tice has. The Falcons as your kink is a
I know.
truly disturbing thing.
Worked
but
there for
please
2
go on.
years. I didn't
I was
like
gonna
living
say.
in Georgia, and I was still, I like them more than when I worked for them, which is a weird wraparound there. But no, but I think they just match up really well. And having said that, is the other side of the question. That's why I feel good about the Packers. Not that I feel good about them as a whole. I just think that they're going to go against this thing that boosts them all up, and it's the get right game. That's the Lions defense they get to go against, which will make anybody look good. And I think just even with this Packers offense that has been frustrating at times, they do some efficiency stuff very well. They just aren't very explosive as an offensive unit, very side to side. Like Aaron Rodgers has the most throws at or behind the line of scrimmage since 2012, as far as percentage wise. He's like that new Alex Smith apparently. And they're going against this Lions defense that can't stop anybody. So I feel like this is a good get right game for them.
Kevin, I want to acknowledge this real quick because I've asked to put this card up for the podcast audience. According to True Media's database, which goes back to the year 2000, the Lions defense is dead last in EPA per drive. You're telling me, like, of all of the defenses, this year's Lions is actually just that. I did not realize it was.
I'm gonna tell
this grim.
I did. I'm going to tell you a story, and this is no slight at anybody, but I was doing my training camp tour, and everybody is hyping up whatever they got, whatever unit they control. Yep. If it's a GM, they like their roster, they like the rookies, they like the 5th round pick who looks spicy. I met with the Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, and I said, "What's the goal?" And he said, "Top half of the league." And I was like, "Oh, that can't be good."
No. Because there's that little deflation you have to make.
Like, oh, we want to be 16th. The goal is 16th in the NFL. And I was like, oh, boy. I do want to shout out Nate Tice for thinking that Georgia politics is so toxic he'd rather be governed by the mob boss's wife than live in Atlanta.
That says a lot
as
about
he
me.
did for 2 years. I'm not sure, Nate, that the Chargers are that much better than the Falcons. That's why this is an easy answer.
We're there right now. That's where we are,
Not
Kevin.
that spicy, though.
The Falcons aren't that bad.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, Patrick Doherty, who's one of our great NFL tweeters, he's over at Roto World. He tweeted something today. There was a quote tweet of something he did last year. There was a quote tweet of something the year before, which is, why is every Chargers season the exact same season? And we're starting to see it. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Doesn't matter who the coach is. It's they look okay. We start to buy into them. Everybody starts to get injured. The wheels fall off. They can never win the game where we all pin our hopes and we say, okay, the Chargers are going to make the leap. They never make the leap. It's like the Stephen A meme that was going around a couple weeks ago about the Mets. It's never their year. That's why it wasn't the Mets' year. It's never their year. And with the Chargers, I mean, I'm just going to workshop it right now. I floated it before. Nate, how do you feel about this? Sleepy Joe Lombardi.
Yeah.
Is that a good nickname?
That is a good nickname.
I mean,
I
we're
like
at
it.
midterms. I mean, it's
I
Sleepy
like
Joe
it. It's
Lombardi.
relevant.
I don't know how else.
Many are saying that's a good
saying.
nickname.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and so
good.
with the Packers, they're getting better every week. You can see why the Packers are bad. Like, Nate, you can see it. Like, they go for it on fourth down and a guy drops a pass. You go, okay, well, that could have been executed
run
better.
into each other.
Yeah,
or
two guys run into
trip
each other. It's execution problems. It's a couple of sloppy plays here and there. They're not far off. And I'm skeptical about the Packers in general for this season. Chris Long was on my pod today, and he was saying that the problem with a team like the Packers, and Nate, you know this having been in NFL locker rooms, is they know what greatness is. They know what a 13-win team is, and they can look around and be like, oh, we don't have this.
Yeah.
Oh, this is not us. And the Falcons are looking around and going, hey, we don't know what winning football is. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's us.
Everyone thought we were going to suck and we're 500.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers is like, I used to throw to Devontae Adams. Who are you losers?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things that jump out at me. Number one, the training camp compliment tour, where everybody is basically measuring their teams like NBA draft prospects, patting their socks, is great. I love that nothing is trustworthy and that honesty actually is the most worrisome sign of all. But the idea, like, just in terms of, like, again, cutting straight to what makes my life easier, I do like it when I can be lazy about takes. And the Chargers just being the same every year. It's, Kevin, you have no idea, man. I am like 4 takes just rolling around in this brain. And the Chargers being exactly as mediocre.
There's only 7 stories you can tell. There's only 7 takes you can have. That's kind of
it's an old financial saying, actually. It's an old financial saying. But
every Chargers season eventually becomes the same.
Yeah. This talked about on our show this week that's what the Chargers, I compared them to Waterworld, the movie, in the sense that Waterworld was like considered this big bust, big flop. But when you look at it, actually like broke even. But the thing was, it was the most expensive movie, had a production hell, development hell. And so that's why people remember it as being this big flop. And I feel like that's what the Chargers are right this year. It's like big money. They spend a bunch of money on the defense. Justin Herbert's going to rise, and then they're just average. And that almost makes it like worse. It's like, oh, that's not fun. They're like 16th and 14th and like everything. And it actually almost makes them a little bit more boring and a little bit more disappointing, because like schlock is still fun. Like when it's a team's like really crap when you expect them to be good, but being average kind of just makes it not as fun to talk about or look at.
Kevin, I just like how Nate clarified Waterworld, the movie, and not the novel, that the movie was based on.
That wasn't based on anything. That wasn't a George Orwell, anything like that. No, that was.
I think we
sorry,
missed it.
Man.
Original IP. That was the last original IP.
It was
made.
Except they stole it off of Mad Max, so they just repackaged Mad Max. That's all they did. No, but the take the same way though, like because I feel the same way with this. The Packers offense is frustrating, but like you can see it's efficient at least, and then the defense like doesn't create a lot of plays and they can't stop the run that well. But when you look at their pass defense, they're great against the pass. They force a ton of 3 and outs. They are top 5 and as far as like explosive plays and how many deep balls are thrown against them. So they kind of make it tough on offenses, even though you can run the ball on them a little bit. But it's like offensively, they're just figuring it out. They don't have a ton of receivers. A lot of teams run 2-man against them right now because they have nobody that can really win against man. And Aaron Rodgers is just like not scrambling, which is a way you can beat 2-man. But I feel like they're finding their way, but it's not that those heights that we see it at. They're more just like, okay, you say, oh, Aaron Glenn, when our goal is to be the 16th best defense. I feel like for them, it's like our goal is to be the 12th best offense or the 10th best offense. But I think that's okay for how this Packers team's constructed.
And the NFC.
And in the NFC, wide open NFC.
Yeah.
Alabaster, I don't know about you, but my main takeaway is that Waterworld actually was not a financial disaster.
Yeah, who knew?
That's the take I'm taking home with me.
I'm glad I got to bring up Kevin Costner, apparently, out of nowhere.
Yellowstone, you in?
I do want to bring up a quarterback who might be a bigger disaster than Waterworld, and that's Zach Wilson. They're playing the Buffalo Bills this weekend, and that could be very bad. And my question to you all is, how close should the Jets be to giving up on Zach Wilson?
So I guess I want to ask a question first off, which is, if you were Zach Wilson, are the Bills the team that you have the most nightmares about playing against? Can we calibrate? Can we spin this into not as bad as it sounds?
Nate?
I mean, it's been pretty rough, man. it's been
But are the Bills the worst team you could face under those scenarios right now?
Yeah. Because the Bills make it. Watch what they did against Kenny Pickett. Watch what I call it the boa constrictor defense, and the Bills are they make it really hard on every quarterback, much less a quarterback. They're not blitzing. Blitzing sometimes can make it really easy on a quarterback, where you're like, oh, I replaced the blitz and throw there. A team that doesn't blitz and plays really good zone coverage, it's like, all right, where do I go? And now you're playing a quarterback that sometimes when he doesn't know where to go, things get very dicey. So this is not a great defense to go against for a quarterback that's struggling with some of those things. So yeah, this is pretty rough.
Dominique is not here. Normally, when I start reading off the stat, he would start yelling, "Stat me down,
Stat me
do
down,
a little dance."
Yeah, I'll do it.
We can superimpose that. Yeah, I'm sure we have
edit that.
The stock footage somewhere. Warren Sharp had this earlier today, and I can't stop thinking about it. Zach Wilson has 41 dropbacks this season of 3.5 seconds or more, meaning basically when he's standing behind the line of scrimmage and he starts to move. He has completed, of those 41 dropbacks, 4 passes. 4 of 41, which seems impossible and is in fact the worst number since that started to be tracked in 2000, which by the way was 1 year after Dan Snyder bought the team. So in the Snyder era, we'll call it, Zach Wilson is the worst at that. And what's amazing to me, Nate, and you probably see it all the time, it's so funny to me to see he evades pressure in the pocket. He rolls out and the announcers are like, he's so good at getting out. And then just nothing happens after that.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. And my colleague, Stephen Ruiz, said this offline. If he said it on a podcast this week, I missed it. But he said something to me and Mina the other day that was so funny that I can't stop thinking about it. And it's that Zach Wilson took one of those build a quarterback with $15 memes and spent all $15 on getting out of the pocket. That's it. That's all he can do. He moves to his right and then he throws the ball out of the bounds, or he doesn't even do that and he just throws an interception. I've never seen anything like this, Nate. Daniel Jeremiah had the point, I think, of all points with Zach Wilson, which he spends 80% of his time trying to create and 20% actually being a distributor and doing something. I mean, it's a little bit, it's like he's trying, it's like a trick shot quarterback. It's like he's trying to impress us instead of taking the layups.
That's exactly what he is.
Two quick thoughts. Number one, the last trick shot quarterback, Johnny McEntee, former UConn quarterback, literally joined Trump's staff. Speaking of the ways in which the midterms are relevant. Second of all, how much of this is Zach Wilson's fault? Because I do want to be fair in terms of chicken and enormous egg here. How much of this is stuff he has to do because he doesn't have what he needs?
Well, I thought actually he had a great situation around him until Elijah Vera Tucker got hurt and Breece Hall got hurt as well. But I actually like what the Jets do on offense. It's a very sound scheme. They have a great run game as far as what they do. They do a lot of play action to try and help them out. It's just that when they drop back, it's every rep is a roller coaster. It's like you don't know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates. His highlights. I love that using that term trick shot quarterback. That's why guys fell in love with him. Analysts fell in love with him coming out of BYU. Was that, oh my God, you need that creation ability. You look at Mahomes. Look
that
at
one throw he did, moving to his left off the wrong foot, that bomb.
He tries to do that every time, though, but that's the misconception that we have with these elite quarterbacks. And you do have to grade to those guys, to those flash plays, because you do need it to be an elite guy. but you still have to do the normal stuff. You still have to sit in the pocket, diagnose a defense, and deliver a throw on time. And you can see when Wilson, Michael Floyd, the offense coordinator for the Jets, is a Shanahan guy, they script out their first 12, 15 plays. Wilson on those plays looks decent, like, because he's confident with where to go to the ball. His footwork looks good. Like he's very calm because he knows exactly where he's going to go with the ball because they practice those plays. Then when it gets outside that opening script, things just come unraveled. But when you watch him, he had a touchdown to Tyler Conklin against the Patriots. He hits the back of his drop, ball comes out, it's perfect, right on the money, right in the rhythm. But that's 3 times a game, 4 times a game he does that. Every other time it looks like he's guessing. His head's going side to side. That's why he does all that stuff outside the pocket. It's because he's like, I don't know what's going on inside the pocket. Let's check it out over here and see if the view changes a little bit. So you can tell his circle button works really well because he spins and spins. He twirls towards freedom every pass play. But it's happy feet's a terrible habit to develop. You usually see it with a quarterback getting killed on every snap. Their offense line's been fine. So it's like he's creating a lot of his own pressures. It's just a lot of the underlying metrics look terrible, but then if you watch him with just your eyes, you're like, man, this guy's like digressing as he plays. Every single snap, it looks worse than the last.
We gotta rebrand Happy Feet, Kevin. I feel like that term is totally like, it sounds way too positive for what it actually describes.
It's just a George Miller reference. I'm referencing Mad Max already, so I had to get all of his filmography out there.
Hey Nate, it looks like Zach may not. Nate and I did a podcast last week together.
Oh yes, I was hoping you mentioned this. So and
I will say one of our third, Derek Klassen, said that Zach Wilson is, quote, not an NFL quarterback. Like he shouldn't be you shouldn't be in the National Football League. My modest proposal is that knowing he can move, knowing he's athletic, knowing he's a trick shot quarterback as he joins Dude Perfect or something like that, like a YouTube, like he could be like a YouTube guy and just do cool things and make the millions he will not be getting in the NFL. Like I do think out of anybody who could have a bunch of YouTube subscribers right now, it would be Zach Wilson. Also, with the other stuff about his personal life, I mean, who knows where you could take that.
I was going to say, I love this. Are you guys familiar with my favorite of all of these trick shot characters on Instagram? And this is from the world of basketball, but it's at Lethal Shooter. Are you familiar with Lethal Shooter?
I don't think so.
Oh my God. We'll just throw, maybe if they keep this part in the show, a quick shot of him shooting a basketball into a rim that is covered in knives.
I think I did see that clip.
Lethal Shooter, Kevin Durant's high school teammate. He has made a big Instagram following off of that. But I digress. I do have one follow-up question on Zach Wilson for you guys. And that is, I'm not comparing him to Josh Allen at all. Getting that out of the blue. But a lot of people gave up on Josh Allen after 2 years and thought he was going to be a bust. My question is, if they're uber talented quarterbacks, is there a case to be made to not give up on him?
People gave up on Nathan Peterman after 2 years too.
Yeah,
like that just happens. Most quarterbacks end up more in the Peterman.
Or you give him another. You give Sam Darnold another try. That's another one as well.
Josh
Rosen,
Rosen
be chasing.
He's available
for 3 different teams. That's the thing. People are going to be chasing Josh Allen for the rest of their lives. You know what the other thing Josh Allen had going for him? He's 6'5", 240 pounds, and runs a 4.6. Like that's another thing that let him lift up his ship to like coast to success, is because he was able to get out and create all these plays, even if he was just scattered. He's Professor Chaos. So now, but Wilson tries to do that, but he's 205 pounds. Throwing it around and all that. So there's the physical limitations.
This is why Zach Wilson's influencer account needs to also involve him like bulking up. And then he comes back to the league weighing 270 and he's like, check it out. It's me, Josh Allen, too.
Yeah. Swole Zach, but swole spelt with a Z. There you go. Swole Zach.
All right. We have one more thing on this godforsaken menu, Alabaster. What is it?
Okay, last question. The Rams and Bucs have been 2 of the most disappointing teams in the NFL this season, and they play this weekend. Do you see either of these teams salvaging their year?
Whew. Gosh.
I like the Nate and I both don't want to talk.
I'm exhaling to give you guys the room, and all you guys are doing is exhaling back in my face.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, I'll exhale a take.
Okay,
I think if I were to bet on one, I would bet on the Bucs, mostly because I just think the talent. Oh wow, yeah, love it, love that reaction, Kevin. So the is because I watched Tom Brady. His arm's not washed. We are not looking at a 2015 Peyton Manning or a 2020 Breeze who can't get the ball past 15 yards. I do think he still has some juice in his arm, but there are some underlying metrics that have maybe a little worrisome about what's going on with this Bucs offense. I feel like the opposing defenses have really caught on to this Arians Leftwich type of offense. Everything is very tight now. The interior O-line woes, the Jensen stuff, Ryan Jensen being out, is really, it's kind of come to a head a little bit as defenses picked up on that. Brady's time to throw has dropped 0.2 of a second. He's now has one of the 5 fastest time to throws, or 7 fastest since 2012. So he's like getting to Big Ben, late career Big Ben numbers, which is not a good thing. His sack percentage has gone up. His average depth of target,
late career Brando. Like, yeah, it was good for a while, and then it got real messy and gross.
The island of Dr. What's his face?
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting to
Moreau.
that level.
Yes.
Moreau,
the island
yes.
of Dr. Roethlisberger.
Yes, that's exactly what we're getting to. But his average depth of target, he was 9 yards in 2020, which was first in the league. He's at just over 7 yards right now, which is 23rd in the league. This offense is a very difficult offense to run because you have to push the ball. And it's not to generate yards after the catch, because average depth of target isn't everything, but you do have to create after the catch. If you're doing that, Mahomes and Brady have the same average depth of target. Mahomes is 5th in yards after catch on completions. Brady is 24th. So you have a very just tight, stagnated offense with a pissed off quarterback who's wondering, why did I do this for another year? But having said all that, I actually feel better about it than when I watched the Rams offense and defense that is just getting older. The offensive line woes are just hindering the entire team. They literally can't run the ball. They have the one of the worst rush success rates since 2012. Just absolutely terrible running the ball. But I think the Bucs have more answers because they just have more general talent, and I don't think Brady is washed enough. So it's a long-winded way to say backhanded compliments toward the Bucs that they have talent. So I think they will win out in the end, as opposed to the Rams.
That was a deeply depressing compliment, but
Kevin, I know.
Also, late stage Roethlisberger, when he's like 6 years older than Roethlisberger ever was, is very funny about Ben Roethlisberger. It's a backhanded compliment, but also an incredible dig at Ben Roethlisberger.
They took care of their bodies a little bit differently in the offseason. When I was at Pitt as a GA and watching Big Ben, like during the offseason training, walking when they're supposed to be running sprints, and he just walked them, I was like, I don't think you're going to age gracefully, my friend, compared to the guy that literally
respect that
$5 million into his body every season.
So, as of last week and Sunday morning, both of these teams were in the playoffs. That's how ridiculous the NFC is right now.
It's bad.
The Falcons are now first in the NFC South, and I think the Rams have fallen out of the 7th seed. The NFC playoffs are going to be a mess, frankly. That 7th seed, the last couple of years I've joked, I've called it, there could have been an email game because just nothing has happened. Like, we could see a team like the Packers, a team like the Rams in there. And then if you're the 2 seed playing the Giants, playing the Cowboys, that could be spicy. Or a division winner, which I don't even know who that would be. The Vikings, I guess, would be the first round.
Yeah.
6-1.
The Eagles would be the first seed. But I think that there's a couple of layers to this. Number one is that I trust Sean McVay to figure it out more than I trust the infrastructure of the Bucs. But they've got a fatal flaw, which is their offensive line is a disaster right now. And Matthew Stafford was pressured in the second half 42% of his dropbacks, which is just completely
That's a lot of fun.
That's you don't need an analytics guy to figure out that that's real bad.
No.
The transition from Andrew Whitworth has been a complete disaster. They just don't have the horses right now. It's been a huge problem. Matthew Stafford's elbow problem is very, very serious. But I think there have been a couple of times in Sean McVay's career, Nate, where we've said, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't have a second note. He can't make adjustments." A couple of years ago, we kind of after the year after the Super Bowl, we kind of left his schemes for dead for a couple of weeks there, and he figured it out. He makes adjustments as well as anybody over the season in football. There's a reason he's one of the best coaches in football. So I trust that group and that talent. They do not have massive injury problems. There are enough blue chip guys there that I just think that they're going to eke out some wins, whereas Tampa Bay, it just seems like they're lost at sea, Nate.
No, I and that's the thing. Oh my God, it's picking between a bad bunch here. But when I watch this Rams offense, that even last year when they weren't great running the ball, they still had that to like lift up the ship. Like Stafford had the lowest average yards to go on third down in the entire league. is because they're just getting those easy yards. And now this whole offense is built off screens and get the third down and Cooper Kupp get open. That's what the offense feels like. And like you're saying, you're bringing up the offensive line, and that's why I just can't find the answers for this. It's not like Van Jefferson, Robert Woods is not coming through that door. Like it's like they have Van Jefferson right now. They don't have that second weapon. It's Cooper Kupp and a little bit of Tyler Higbee. And other than that, Ben Skoranek, who I call affectionately Skarsgård because I couldn't remember his name, they're moving him around. That guy shouldn't be playing 30, 40 snaps for an NFL team. He should be a complimentary special team type guy. And the fact that they have to rely on that, Allen Robinson was supposed to be a big, he'll help us beat man coverage outside when they double team Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson's doesn't look great. Like he's not getting open. He's not creating separation. He's not just doing.
Who can I get my money back for in the Allen Robinson hype? There were so many people in August who were like, "Oh, he's
I
he's
want
him.
my money back from
I'm on
you.
him alert for. I know,
Kevin.
I bought in.
Nate, the first episode we did right before the Thursday night opener, Rams Bills. The first proper name that was said on that show. We're gonna play this here in the edit. I hope is Kevin Clark saying Allen Robinson. That is how that conversation started.
We're not going to play that in the edit.
No,
we're not going to play in the edit. Odell's not back. Von Miller's not back. Allen Robinson is better than Odell at this point in his career. No, we're gonna. You know what we're gonna take from that episode is when Dominique Foxworth said that the Bills don't run Josh Allen early in the season, and then you stole that take for Around the Horn, and then he became Michael Vick that night.
Unbelievably terrible.
That's really funny.
That was like
we actually have to burn the tapes of that.
That
episode.
Take was laced with fentanyl, and I ate it like bad Halloween candy.
Dominic has to leave the NFLPA Alumni Association now. He has to turn in his playing card after that tape.
I accuse him of representing the owners last time I was on this show too. No, but that was my barometer too. Was like for who's paying attention was how people reacted to the Bobby Wagner signing. Because I love Bobby Wagner, great player. Last year was a negative player, and how people reacted to that was like, you didn't watch the Seahawks last year. Like, not that a lot of people were, don't get me wrong, but it's like one of those where it's like, okay, how are you paying attention? But that's what the Rams, they only have so many resources. And when you spend it on Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner, this is what it looks like. When you don't, yes, F them picks worked last year, but this is the repercussions of F them picks.
It's really funny, Nate, because I heard a take the other day from Chris Sims that I can't stop thinking about, where he said that he likes to anoint people early because by the time we all agree somebody's the best in the league, they're no longer the best in the league. That's just how football works.
Yep.
Where like when there's a critical mass of praise for a player like Bobby Wagner, when Bobby Wagner finally gets his due, the way careers work, it means he's on the downside. That's just how time in football works.
It's the SI coverage jinx, but for the human condition.
Yes.
Right. And like guys are actually peaking like randomly in like week 9, 2 years before they get on the ESPN magazine digital cover, right? And I think that the Rams roster building strategy at this point is getting a bunch of guys who are considered the best in the league who actually peaked 2 years ago.
The Rams strategy is now it's still F them picks, but there's a comma after the F. It's just F.
Them picks.
They tried to give up 2 firsts for Brian Burns last week.
And they're in the CMC sweepstakes, just everything. No, that's really funny. I actually said something similar about Jeffrey Simmons for the Titans this week. And I was like, well, right now we're talking about him. So other people will pick up in a couple of weeks. And then a year from now, people will recognize Jeffrey Simmons. Like that's how it goes, especially these other positions. It builds up. Outside quarterbacks, it's like everybody else takes about 2 years. There's a little lag. And apparently with the Rams pro scouting staff as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. George Kittle had like 18 months. And then now I see Niners writers dealing with fans who want to cut him. It's like, wasn't he just the best player in football, quote unquote?
This
like
is very confusing to me
ago?
As a normie who like gets a lot of his news from like the little pop-up windows when I click on my fantasy team. Like, I'm like, what's this little flag say? Oh, George Kittle sucks now? I could have used this information 3 months ago.
Before the drafts happen. No, that's exactly it. There's a delay. There's a delay for all of us. Or we just stick with our takes and we're just like, yeah, this guy's still he'll figure it out. Just look at the flashes. That's the other one too. So
luckily the Chargers all over that one now.
Pablo's philosophy of not knowing any players is the correct one. You never have to go all in and you just go, oh, George Kittle, over him.
Just permanently pivoting. Permanently pivoting. That's the way to do it.
Yep. I see all of God's children as equal. I don't know why you guys are bigots.
We didn't tie in your first subject on the show, or is that going to be after us?
Thankfully not on this show.
Oh man.
Alabaster, I feel like I just overdosed on football. My skin's tingling. I feel smarter and yet dumber, like probably way dumber, but also, yeah. Oh, follow us at Debatable, right? You guys have things to promote. You want to just yell it out?
I want to promote the fact that I've been in a Larry David situation for the past 45 minutes, which is I was watching Curbed all day. It is playing currently on mute. I've been trying to pause it, but the remote is just out of reach, and I was trying to figure out the entire time if I could dive down and put it on pause, and I couldn't. And so now I just have to figure out why it wasn't Curbed.
What a totally unnecessary level of professionalism. I appreciate it, though. That's endearing. I love that you cared about this show enough to treat it like a real show.